Hey there, Tom here from the Run Testers with another running shoe versus. In this video, we're going to be taking a look at the Hoka Mach 5 and the new Hoka Mach X. Let's take a look. The Hoka Mach X costs £160 or $180. It weighs in at 242 grams or 8.5 ounces for men in a size 8, and the drop is 5mm. The Hoka Mach 5 costs £130 or $140. It weighs in at 212 grams or 7.5 ounces for men in a size 8, and the drop is 5mm. The Mach X is a shoe that Hoka fans have been eagerly awaiting, designed to take learnings from the impressively versatile Mach range and combine that with a propulsive carbon plate. That plate sits between two layers of foam, EVA to provide a supportive ride, and a new PEBA section to improve responsiveness and rebound. That combination is built to feel soft for easy sessions, but with plenty of pop for faster efforts. Other features include a creel jackered upper for breathability and comfort, a gusseted tongue, and a generous layer of outsole rubber for grip and durability. The Hoka Mach 5 is the long-anticipated successor to the hugely popular Mach 4 and its slightly firmer sibling, the Mach Supersonic. In the most recent version, there's an updated ProFly Plus midsole that offers a slightly softer ride for daily training runs, a leaner upper to keep the weight down, including a redesigned lay-flat tongue, and longer laces than those supplied with the Mach Supersonic. It's a shoe that's designed for versatility, allowing you to go from comfortable daily miles all the way up to race day, offering an excellent balance of responsiveness and cushioning. That balance is the result of a dual-density midsole that combines a softer layer with a firmer, rubberized outer layer. Hoka says is a shoe that has a little more oomph behind it, both in performance and ride.
So both of these shoes fit me well in my normal running shoe size. They are UK 9s, US 9.5s, and that works well for me in both shoes. I have quite a narrow foot and tend to get on quite well with Hoka shoes as a result, but you can see, even with the Mach 5, which is a reasonably narrow shoe, I had to pull the laces quite tight to get a good lockdown fit with it. But I'd say the Mach X is a little bit wider than the Mach 5, but both of them held my foot perfectly securely, had enough room in the forefoot, good hold at the heel. So yeah, no concerns at all in my normal running shoe size with both shoes.
Now when it comes to fit, I've run true to size in both of these shoes, 8.5 in the UK, which is my size. That is what I'd recommend. They do come up a bit snug. If anything, the Mach X is a little bit snugger across the top of the toes, maybe a little bit into that kind of toe knuckle area. Both of these fit quite snug around that area. And if you've got super wide feet, you might want to take that into consideration and see about going half a size up potentially. But I found them absolutely bang on, true to size for what I like to run, which is, they hug enough, there's just enough wiggle room in the toe box. And so I would recommend going true to size.
Fit for me in both of these shoes. I'm a size 8. I've got a size 8 in both of these shoes, and I find them to be very comfortable. I've done a lot of miles in the Hoka Mach 5, and I've had no issues at all in the fit of this shoe. And I've done a few runs in the Hoka Mach X, and again, it seems very comfortable. I think I would say that the Hoka Mach 5 is a little bit more narrow than the Hoka Mach X for me. Not massively. I don't have particularly wide feet, so I don't really notice it, but I definitely felt that the Mach 5 was just a little bit less spacious than the Mach X. But other than that, they both have very comfortable uppers and just enough padding to be comfortable, but not too much padding. But they are very nice to wear, and I stick to my size.
So I've just done my side-by-side mile. I've got the Hoka Mach 5 on the left foot, Hoka Mach X on the right foot. And there's a few things that are really noteworthy. When you first slip the shoes on, both shoes have this really nice sensation where they kind of cradle the feet. The footbed of the shoe actually really kind of envelops the bottom of your foot nice and comfortably. They both hug fairly tightly. I think in terms of sizing and fit, I think there's a little bit more room in the Hoka Mach 5, just a little bit more room in the toe box, a little bit more wiggle room. The Hoka Mach X just fits a bit more racy. It's a bit more kind of snug, particularly around across the sort of top of the toes there. Now, when you get moving, I think you also notice a difference. It's a subtle difference, but there is a difference here. And the thing is, the Mach X just has a little bit more pop. One of the reasons for that, I think, the Mach 5 run a little bit flatter. I do think you notice that kind of lower stack marginally, and you just feel like you sink a little bit more. There's a little bit softer feeling underfoot when you first land. Now, what you're getting with the Mach X, I think, is you almost feel like that rocker's a bit more pronounced, and there's a bit more kind of firmness in the foam coming back. So there's almost a bit more under the ball of the foot. So as you roll through, you get more of the spring. I think that's partly the foam. That's also partly, I think, the leverage that you're getting from that PEBA plate that's in there. And it is noticeable. The other thing, Mach X it feels like a smaller shoe on the foot. It's heavier, but actually I think it feels a little bit more compact and a little bit more agile. And looking at it when I'm kind of facing down, I can see actually there's a bit more length in the Mach 5 than there is in the Mach X. The toe doesn't extend quite as far. I think there's actually a little bit less width marginally here, and I think you've noticed the kind of heel protrusion a bit more on the Mach 5 than you do on the Mach X, and that just creates this kind of overall feeling of, I guess, a little bit of a bigger platform, bit cushioned platform in the Mach 5, but a sort of smaller landing zone and a bit more kind of punch and a bit more kind of agility into the Mach X. And one thing I think that's really clear for me is that the Mach X feels a little bit more racy, it feels a little bit more faster, it feels like a bit more of an up-tempo shoe now to the Mach 5, which feels a little bit more like a shoe you might use for, and it's super versatile, the Mach 5. I absolutely love it. You could use it for almost anything, but it does, to me, sort of sit a bit further back when you might want to be doing things that are a little bit longer and you need a bit more cushioning and protection. I think the Mach X is going to sit kind of higher up that kind of pace or form kind of chain, if you want to call it that, when you're running in your best form. But these are both great shoes, absolutely love them, and the margins here I think between the two of them are really quite subtle.
So I've been a long-term fan of the Hoka Mach line. I really liked actually the original shoe, and then the last couple of versions I think have been really outstanding options on the market at large as lightweight, non-plated trainers that were comfortable, versatile, could do a little bit of everything. And then when I saw the Mach X coming out and what's involved in the shoe with that PEBA based midsole foam on the top there and the PEBA plate, I really thought it was going to be an amazing shoe. And actually I've ended up not loving the Mach X as much as I expected to in comparison. I do think both shoes actually still do quite similar things in what they're best at. They are both nice rockered shoes that roll through very nicely at easy paces, cruisy paces, steady paces, and then both of them maybe lack a little bit when it comes to pushing to all out paces, really fast training runs, that kind of thing. I think they're solid options for that, but actually they're not exceptional. I think that's more a problem with the Mach X because it is a shoe that's probably got a bit more going on. It's the more expensive shoe of the pair of them. It's got that plate in there, it's got the PEBA foam, but it doesn't feel very bouncy and explosive underfoot. You do get a little bit more pop from the Mach X when you're running fast compared to the Mach 5 for sure, but at the same time it's not a huge upgrade in terms of speed because it's a bigger shoe, heavier shoe. You lose a little bit of the nimble feel that you get with the Mach 5, which does feel so natural and easy to get into a rhythm with at almost any pace. It really does feel like an extension of your foot, whereas the Mach X is a much more noticeable chunk on the end of your foot there, and I don't think it's quite delivering the amount of spring you might expect for such a big shoe to really make it great for fast training. It is lovely for rolling around at easy paces though. I do think it's quite a supportive shoe and a comfortable shoe given the high stack, the fact that I think it's quite stable, certainly more so than other shoes with this kind of stack height and tech going on. That's partly because it's just got a slightly firmer feel than you might expect for a shoe that's got the PEBA foam in the midsole like this. Direct comparisons, I think you're going to get a bit more protection and comfort from the Mach X when it comes to longer runs. I think it's got a little bit more pop for longer hard runs as well. It will help you sustain good paces for longer. When it comes to your daily training, just easy runs cruising around for half an hour, I think they're equally good. I almost prefer probably the more natural feel of the Mach 5. When it comes to faster runs, yeah, I think it's a bit of a wash actually. The Mach 5 is a bit lighter. It does make it easy to pick up the feet and turn them over. You get more punch from the Mach X when you're looking at short, sharp reps and that kind of thing. But at the same time, it's not really delivering as much oomph as you might hope for given the spec sheet of the shoe. So there are some little differences between them, but it's not, the Mach X doesn't really outshine the Mach 5 as much as I might have expected. You have got an outsole on the Mach X, and that is going to improve durability. I will say my first run in the Mach X, I ran on greasy pavements and the grip wasn't actually fantastic. I think it's roughed up a bit now, the outsole. It should be a little bit better, but I don't think you're going to gain a whole load in grip because I have found that the Mach 5 grips quite well with that rubberized outsole foam, but it will be less durable than the Mach X, which obviously is a point in the favour of the more expensive shoe. Same time, the lack of an outsole on the Mach 5, I always have felt it's part of its appeal because it creates a very soft ride. Like it really feels like you're making a really nice contact with the ground without any kind of slap because of that rubberized EVA outsole. But yeah, it does have its downsides in terms of durability.
Okay, so the run test in these two shoes is an interesting one. Obviously, a lot of people, when the Hoka Mach 5 was out, we saw a lot of people talking about if they're ever going to add a plate into it, and they have in the shape of the Hoka Mach X. Now, the Hoka Mach 5 is a shoe that all the run testers have been big fans of. I did a lot of my training for Chicago Marathon in this shoe. I used it as a training partner for the Saucony Endorphin Pro 3, and I really liked it just because it didn't have a plate. I like training in a shoe that doesn't have a plate if I'm doing marathon training, just because I like to have the benefit of the plate when I'm racing, or if I'm doing a really hard run and I want something to give me a bit of a hand. But the Mach 5 was a perfect training partner for that, because it doesn't have a plate, but it's still a very fast shoe and a very versatile shoe. So what I find about the Mach 5 is that it has a relatively, it doesn't have loads of cushioning. It's not a max cushion shoe, but it does have enough cushioning to feel comfortable over longer runs. But also has plenty of pickup, feels very lightweight on the feet, and just feels very responsive. That dual layer midsole foam is really comfortable, but also has got a nice balance of softness and a bit of responsiveness in it as well. It's just a fantastic shoe, and if you're looking for a all-rounder trainer which veers more towards the speed stuff, it's brilliant. And I don't think I found a shoe that's as good as this. It doesn't have a plate in it. So the Mach 5 is a shoe that we've always said, you know, if you want to pick up a fast training shoe, a versatile training shoe, or a daily trainer that skews towards speed, it's a great shoe for that. Now the Mach X has come out, and that it's not just a Hoka Mach 5 with a plate in it. It does feel like a different shoe. It feels more like something like the Saucony Endorphin Speed 3. I wouldn't say the plate is massively noticeable in it. It's not like a carbon plate racing shoe where you can feel that propulsion from the plate. It just feels nice and efficient when you're running in it. So I've done intervals and a longer run in this shoe. And I found that on the longer runs, it was fine. It just felt really good, very comfortable. There's plenty of cushioning in it, and it really just helps roll you forward comfortably as you're doing those longer sessions, and helps you keep a nice consistent pace. It's very easy to maintain a consistent pace in both of these shoes, but the plate does help it a bit, and does really sort of turn you over nicely. For the interval sessions, it's great. It does feel really fast. It does feel like you can pick up the pace very quickly in it, and the plate in it, alongside that dual layer foam that's in it, really does help you pick up and accelerate quite nicely. It's not a sluggish shoe. It's very nippy, and I definitely say it's a good option. Both of these are good options if you want a shoe. Maybe if you just want one shoe to do all of your running in, and you want to be able to race in it and do faster sessions in it, but you also want to do daily or slower runs in it. Both of these shoes are very good for that. But I would say the Mach X has just got a little bit more to it, probably there's a bit more in that midsole. So it's just probably a bit better for the longer runs. And it's just a bit more enjoyable, I think. But I think I'm still going to run in the Hoka Mach 5 a lot as well. I don't think they're comparable shoes in a lot of ways, because they do feel very different. And I still like that natural feel that you get from the Mach 5. Mach X doesn't necessarily feel unnatural, but you know there's a plate in it, and it does feel a little bit like it's moving your foot in a way that it wants you to, whereas the Mach 5 just feels very natural on the feet and very comfortable. Okay, so my verdict on the Mach 5 and the Mach X is a really, really difficult one, because I kind of want both of them. They do slightly different things, but if I had to choose one of these to have for my daily training runs, my versatile runs, my faster runs, I'm still going to go Mach 5, because I really like it as a non-plated training partner to a carbon plate race shoe, and it's just so comfortable. I just really enjoy running in it. It feels very natural on the feet, and I just love the ride of it. The Mach X is fantastic as well. It's a really, really good shoe, and it's very versatile, probably even more versatile than the Mach 5. But I do, when it comes to daily training miles, as a rotation, I do want to have a shoe that isn't plated for a lot of those sessions, especially if I'm marathon training or training for a half marathon. And I think the Mach 5 is that shoe, but it's difficult. I basically want both of them.
Now, my verdict on these two shoes, I think, is pretty simple. I don't think one shoe is necessarily better than the other shoe. I actually think they're going to be marginally aimed at slightly different types of running. Although I also feel they're both pretty versatile as well. I can do lots of different ranges of pace and mileage in both of these shoes. But if I'm going to draw the distinction, the Mach X is going to appeal much more to when you're going faster, perhaps a little bit shorter, where you want a bit more of a punchy run, where you don't necessarily need as much protection if things are going to go a little bit ragged. So compare that to the Mach 5, which I think, although it's a lighter shoe, it's got a lower stack, it does feel, I think, a little bit more protected, a bit more cushioned, and it feels like it's got a bit more, particularly back into the heel, and a sort of slightly wider platform. I also think the midsole foam is a little bit softer, so you get a little bit more cushioning protection from the road in that shoe. So then I would be tempted to be using the Mach 5 probably more for things from the slower up to the faster, whereas I think the Mach X is basically from faster kind of down towards the slower. I've happily run long, slow miles in the Mach X as well, but I think that's where they kind of overlap. Now, if you were going to really push me on a shoe, the one that I really have enjoyed running in more is the Mach X. The one that I think I would probably get more use out of on a versatility basis, I think is going to be the Mach 5. And even though I think you're going to get more on race day potential out of the Mach X if you wanted to use it for races, or a little bit more when you wanted to do those kind of faster interval sessions, or when you've got up the tempo a bit, I do think that really the Mach 5 can cope with that stuff. And because of the price point, there's arguably a little bit extra value there. So if I had to really be pushed, I'd probably go Mach 5, money no object, and just for sheer fun and speed and all out, I'd go Mach X. Both of these shoes are excellent. I don't think you'll be disappointed in either of them if you buy either of them though.
So I would rate both of these shoes as good all-rounder shoes that can handle a nice variety of runs, are very good for cruising around in at easy paces, and then can do faster stuff, but maybe it isn't quite their forte. They've actually got more similar rides than you might expect, I think, given that you've got a lot more going on with the Mach X. They've got nice rockered rides, a little bit more pop on the Mach X from the plate, but not a huge amount. And given that, I do think I'd probably end up using them for quite similar runs. I probably would go for the Mach 5 out of these two, because it is that little bit cheaper. It does have such a nice feel on the foot because of the lightweight design, the way it contacts the ground without that outsole. You're going to get a more durable, more impressive shoe for fast and long runs in the Mach X, but for daily training miles and that kind of thing, I probably prefer the feeling of the Mach 5, and is a shoe you can find for quite good prices these days. So yeah, I thought the Mach X was going to come in and blow me away, and it was going to be a next step for the Mach line. And actually, it's almost similar to the Mach Supersonic, which I thought, oh, this could be an even better version of the Mach. And again, I kind of feel I find myself reaching for the Mach 5 again, just as the more simple shoe that does a similar job while feeling just really nice on the foot. The Mach X, just despite all the stuff in the midsole, it doesn't all add up to a massive uptick in performance for me. So yeah, like I said, I'd probably grab the Mach 5 and a deal if you're looking for a nice, comfortable, rockered daily trainer that can handle a nice variety of runs.
That's it from us. Thanks a lot for watching this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, click the little bell and all those different things, and check the channel out for all the other videos we've got coming up. If you go into the caption below, you can also find a link to the podcast, which you can listen to when you're out on the run. And we have plenty of interviews with various people, as well as our monthly podcast where we talk about all things to do with the latest kit. Thanks a lot for watching. Catch you next time.